From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Welcome to Ask the Attorney. I'm Amy Rao-Mohan, your host, along with Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm in Clarksville. And Ask the Attorney is such a great opportunity for people to call in and get legal advice. And Kevin, you've been practicing for more than 30 years.
Yeah, more than 30 years. When I look back over the practice of law, you know, the law changes when men's ideas and values change, but the principles, and that is so true, and women, but the principles of honesty, integrity, morality, what's right, what's wrong, sense of fairness, that never changes.
That's true, and I'm sure you've seen the law evolve over the last
several years. When I first got started, there were some lawyers that still had typewriters with carbon paper. And we had word processors, and then later it came and there was the computer, and now everybody is cranking out computers left and right. And of course, you know, in our courthouse there in Montgomery County, we have the eye scan, where attorneys actually go through and they scan the eye. So if it's high technology, and of course, you know, one of the things that I really don't like is going to a total paperless society. You know, over the years, there's been at least 5 times in my legal career that a piece of paper saved a person. Yeah. And so if they said, okay, well, it's all on the computer, and we had a terrible computer malfunction and it's all gone, what would we do? So again, I still think it's smart to keep that paper.
Well, an attorney I worked with recently, we were at a hearing, and you know, they always have water at the desk, and I started to pour him some, and he said, no, no, no. And he's been practicing for about the same amount of time, and he said one of his very first jury trials, he had an original promissory note, and he was very nervous and poured water and poured it all over it. And so he never drinks water during a trial now, or a hearing.
Because it can really, and you know, so many times someone will have one piece of paper, and you know, a will, an original will is very valuable, especially in these gigantic will cases and will contest cases. So that one piece of paper makes a difference. And you know, we've talked about it in the past where someone can actually sit down at the last and write a holographic will in Tennessee, put it in their own handwriting and sign it, and it's legal. So that piece of paper could transfer literally millions and tens of millions of dollars. So who wants that piece of paper?
And you may not be used to seeing us on Wednesday night because we're usually here the third Thursday of the month, but it's just a different month for us. So make sure you call that number on your screen, 737+, 737-7587. And because there may be some new viewers tonight or viewers who aren't used to us, tell us a little bit about your background, Kevin.
Well, you know, we've been practicing law personally for 32 years in Clarksville and at the Kennedy Law Firm. What we do is a little bit of criminal. We do lots of personal injuries. We do car wrecks and medical malpractice, all kinds of plaintiff's work or injury or accident. And and you know, when we talk about that, everyone says, well, what kind of lawyer would you hire? Well, I'll tell you, I'd hire one that had a team. I always love a team. You're in a team organization. And why? Because if you had a team, if our main lawyer had a crisis, they're out, the team can still conduct business. And many times, if you're in a big practice such as mine, there's crisis every day, and you need manpower. If somebody needed to drive to Cannon County or somebody needed to drive to Waverly, we can get it done. And then, you know, in these big personal injury cases, you know, just like the last one that we settled at $5 million, but it cost like $200,000 in expenses of experts. Well, if you didn't have a lawyer with resources, then they just say, well, we can't do it. Can you do it? Well, you say, I can't do it. Well, then it doesn't get done.
Yeah, and people don't realize how expensive litigation can be.
All the lawyers, even young lawyers and 2 or 3 lawyers cannot generate that to get it done. And so we make plans to keep resources available for those kinds of cases. And of course, if you can stand the test of time, that's why, you know, we have an army of people. They say, wow, how do you feed all the? Well, you have to feed them in the lean times, and then when the good times are there, you've got them, and you can't wait and go rally an army. You got to have that army then, and that's really the way that I look at it. And if we were starting out cold tomorrow, I'd still go right back to the same philosophy, team approach. You and I kick these ideas, collaboration, communication, it gives us the best possible result.
And that's why this show is so fun. I left Channel 5 after being a reporter for several years, went to law school at UT, and now practice at Sherrard Rowe, Voight and Harbison in Nashville. And so it's always fun to be with Kevin and be able to exchange these ideas.
Well, you know, you and I, before we even got started with the show tonight, we were talking about your world's one world. I'm in a plaintiff's world, and you're basically in defense, a lot of defense. And you do some plaintiffs.
Right.
But, you know, our world tomorrow, what can happen?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, just like even you and I, when we go to leave this building, neither one of us know what we're going to face, whether it's a car wreck or a robbery or whatever may take place. And so those certain principles, always try to get some legal advice. Ask the questions and then mull it over. And, you know, I've said over the years, there's no such thing as a perfect lawyer, because one can be excellent in research and one can be excellent in analysis. And so, did you consider this? Have you thought about that? And you know, what's amazing to me, when we get a big client, we had a case in there today, it was very significant, and when we were talking through it, we had several lawyers talking, and wow, we had 2 or 3 things that we never, and we were dealing with some great lawyers on there, but they hadn't identified the issue. So we identified some issues, and we hammer our strengths, stay away from our weaknesses, and move forward, advance.
All right, well, call that number at the bottom of your screen, 737+, 737-7587, and hit us with any type of legal question. We're going to go ahead and take Kenneth here on one. Hi, Kenneth.
Hey, hon.
Hey, go ahead, Kenneth.
Hey, I just purchased a piece of house from this guy, and we just signed the bill of sale, and he signed it every time I paid him, and it's paid in full. How would I go get the deed to that house now?
Okay, well, the first thing, you got to look at your original document. Did he give you a land contract, or did he give you a deed? And if you got the deed, all you need to get from him is a paid in full and release the deed. The property's already in your name. Now, if he just gave you a bill of sale, you're going to have to go to a lawyer, get a deed, and present him with the deed and let him sign the deed over to you. When you get the deed, go and have it recorded. And Tennessee's one of those, the first to record states, and so everything has to be recorded.
All right. We're going to keep taking more calls, 737+, 737-7587, the number at the bottom of your screen. And we do some different work, but luckily we have not been opposed to each other yet. Or unluckily, it would be kind of fun.
That's true. Well, I don't know. I really wouldn't want to go up against you. You're too tough.
Well, I would know your tricks.
Yeah,
I would say
you know
he's dancing the jig.
He's dancing the jig, absolutely.
Tell us about that dancing the jig story.
Well, dancing the jig, you know, I had a preacher and my pastor. I said, "How you doing, Pastor?" And he said, "I'm doing great, Kevin." I said, "Well, tell it." He said, "I'm doing the Kevin Kennedy." I said, "Really?" He said, "I'm dancing a jig." I said, "Well, you go ahead." He said, "Well, I dance with the staff and I dance with the congregation. I dance with the deacons, and as long as I keep everybody dancing, it works." Well, and I had told him the original story. I'm doing the Kevin Kennedy dancing jig. One of my companies was GIG Investment, and everybody said, "What is G?" And I said, "God is good, but it's dance the jig," meaning that you dance with the judge and you try to keep him happy and try to advance in a professional manner. You're dancing with the other lawyer. You're not letting him get too close. You're trying to work at arm's length and work this resolution out. You're dancing with the client. You want to make your client happy, get them the best deal. And then you got to convince the client. You know, many times they say, "I don't want to do this." Well, you have to tell them the hard truth. You know, if we go to trial, and that's one of the things when a lawyer has really messed up, is when you got a better offer on the table and you leave that offer and you go to trial and you get less. Now, that personally has never happened to me. I've had lawyers I worked with, happened a lot. And so I always like to say, you know, you badly miscalculated. And that goes true in a divorce, custody, a criminal trial. And if they said, "Okay, we're going to let you plead guilty to a suspended sentence on a misdemeanor, or we can go to trial on this felony," and if you miscalculate on a major felony, then you miscalculate. The client miscalculated. So a really skilled lawyer, I think over the years, the best argument is one-on-one, that I can lay it out. And when you're reasonable, unless you've got a mental problem and you're not going to settle for anything and you're willing to take those risks, then let's go. And so many of my jury trials, I won a lot of jury trials in a row, and usually, these were criminal jury trials, usually the district attorney will only prosecute those he feels like it's a slam dunk, because they don't want to lose. And so they kind of put me in a box. Well, they got a lot of good evidence, and so we do our best. But if we'd had a way out, I always would say, if you get two reasonable people, if I show you this is our case, this is what we're going to prove, and you're there and you say, this is our case and this is what we're going to prove, you and I can usually get it resolved. That's why most cases are settled.
Right. Well, we're going to keep taking those calls, 737 plus 737-7587. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back with Kevin Kennedy after this.